Mount Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, upon me hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia, for Liberia, Liberia, for Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday, from Monday to Sunday, it's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus.
Something wrong?
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of On Point. We have our special guest here. If you have been in the Liberian society and Liberian politics for a while, you would recognize this name. This is Yanquoi Zaza. He will introduce himself later on, and we're going to delve into national issues. He's a passionate compatriot. We're talking about real patriot of Liberia. From the very beginning to where he is now, he is one thing that we know: he has never changed. Yanquoi Zaza that I met in 1983, 84, 85 is still the same Yanquoi Zaza, fighting for equal justice, the economic setup of Liberia, and everything else. With me today to welcome our brother here is Mr. Gabriel Carter, our financial expert here on the show. Mr. Carter, how are you doing?
Jerome, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I think you said it best. With the, I don't know how many people in the opposition we have, Mr. Zeze has been consistent when it comes to talking about the issue of economics. He puts out articles upon articles, evidence, charts that I don't think any opposition party does. And I think that is commendable to see someone talk about the bread and butter issue, but most importantly, the economics and financial issue, which is important to the country. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to having a good discussion, to learning about what he's, going to talk about, and then we can have a good discussion. Thank you.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, do us a favor, share this show. I know today the Philadelphia Eagle is playing. We know football is on, but this is very important. Let's share this show. Get involved. I see the comments coming in. That's very good. We're going to take some comments. We're going to take some questions from the audience. We're going to have time for you to call in and ask if you want to engage Mr. Zeze. We can do that. Mr. Zeze, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Jerome Gimmett, my president for North New Jersey, Newark chapter, and Honorable Carter, I've been following your writing. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, sir.
Great. For those of us who know you and for the young folks and other folks who are just coming into politics that don't know you, could you introduce yourself, who you are, where were you born? Because I know you were not born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Talk to us.
My name is Yanquoi Zaza. I was born in Fiscal Zaza district. By 1964, I migrated to Monrovia because my older brother wanted to help me to move forward. And from there on, I went to junior high on Nippo Street. From junior high, I went to Tottenham High. Tottenham High, I went to University of Liberia, and then worked at finance, 1978. And later on, I moved on to Commerce Ministry as General Internal Auditor, and then moved on to Investment Commission with due Mason, and then, of course, the Bureau of Reacquisition. From 1981 to 82, I left. By January 13, I was in New York City. Went to the New School for Social Research, graduated by 1986, got my CPA, worked for New York City Finance from 1984, and I retired November 7, 2016. And I decided to come back to my home country, at least to pay back the money that was invested in me, because throughout I went to government school and I decided to pay back. So I came back to see how I can help resuscitate my political party, the Liberian People's Party. Going back to the Liberian People's Party, I was member of SOUP at the University of Liberia. Later on, went on to participate in activities of Moja, and of course, LPP was organized. From then on, we started working to make sure that we participate in helping to make Liberia a better place for all of us. So here I am, Yanquoi Zaza.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard, usually, Mr. Carter, people go to Liberia and say, I left my $200,000 job and I came to pay my respect to the country, and everybody, when we do the background check, it turned out to be false. The reason I asked Mr. Yanquoi Zaza to do this is because he is truly an expert and he laid it out. So for those of you who think he came to Liberia to look for a job, you got your answer there. He doesn't need a job. He's retired from the state of New York, making good money, made good money. So he is genuine in what he's doing. This we can vouch for. You can go and fact check this. So Yanquoi Zaza is different from all the other folks who come to Liberia and say, I came because I left my job, I came to help. So Mr. Zaza, tell us how you became a member of the Liberian, the LPP.
Well, like I said, LPP is a subset of the Movement for Justice in Africa. And those of us who grew up of course, living in Buzakwara, knowing what it was to go to school, Tottenham High, sometimes walk from PTC all the way to 12th Street. We knew what it was. If you live by Soniwe, and when the rain season comes, you got to see whether you live in an attic, sleep in an attic, because your bed is going to be wet from the flood, all of that. It was not difficult to select a progressive party to work for, because it was clear. If you wanted to help the Liberian people to redeem themselves from whatever problems that are in Liberia, you have either go to Moja or you go to PAL. In fact, at one point, many of the folks did not think PAL and Moja were different. They just felt that there were two organizations fighting for the same thing, except you had different leadership. So we were driven to these organizations because of our interest and because of our own experience. If you're invisible, it's not far from Zozo. There was no high school. My brothers then had to join me because there's no high school. Up to now, you in the country, the number of public high schools you have in Lofa, you can't believe it. That's why today you don't even have a commercial bank, because the activities are just minimal in terms of economic activities. So you can just figure out what happened in the 70s. We didn't have money to go to school. Living in Soniwe, Buzakwara, if you live there, you know where it is. Mosquito is your friend because you can't drive them away. So, it was easy to select a political party because there was such, you could say, sharp difference. It was clear there's a difference between those who were rich and those who were poor. So it was easy to select a political party to associate with. That was not a difficult thing at all.
Mr. Carter, and a question
Yes.
for Mr. Zaza before he's coming up with a great idea. And I was afraid that Zaza wouldn't make it to the show today. Somebody may have kidnapped him because he tried to break something. He tried to break a mode. Go ahead. You have any question?
No, I don't have any question. As I said during the introduction, I think as I said, I follow his writings. There, as somebody who's in finance as well, I think they're very detailed. It's one thing to write, but it's a whole different thing to write and then have charts that people can look at and read and understand and make sense of it, which I think he does very well. And the consistency in that, for me, that's why I like the work that he does and continue to do. And I wish there were more people like him in the opposition, regardless of what fear of the political era that we're in, who will consistently bring out these things to the people's attention and make sure that they become aware of it. So this is something we want to commend you on. But no other question before we jump right into it. So
good.
Let's go.
Mr. Yanquoi Zaza, you did something that reminds me of Bacchus Matthews. When Bacchus Matthews began the movement, the folks say you are basically a nephew to Talbot. You can get any job you want. You can see the man anytime you want. Why are you trying to blow his cover? And he says, for the good of the people. So here you are. You are retired. You are making good money. You are living good life. You got money coming in. You have left and gone home. You're from Lofa. You're going to get laid down or put down the mat and say, JB, let's go. But here you are saying you have a prescription for our economy. And the first time I've heard someone say 10% businesses, the mega businesses, everybody should be charged 10% on raw material leaving the country. And you say with that, based on the number you have run and based on your prediction, we don't need to even go outside to look for loan and all that's enough money to do most of the things. The class is open, Mr. Zaza. Educate us on how you came about it and how would this work?
Okay, the economic system nowadays is what is used by what you call powerful people to keep us poor. The economic system, they're not using human being anymore, like have a military man. They're using the economic system. Now, you can see, they say don't generate revenue. Also, you must spend too much of your money. That will compel you to borrow from us, and it will control you when you borrow more money. So you can see the reason why, instead of taxing at least the raw material, they tell you don't tax raw material, because if you tax raw material, more money going to come in. That's one of the reasons why they say government should not get involved in digging gold, digging diamond. Because if government does that, government is going to generate a lot of money, and then government will not borrow money. That's the same reason why they tell you if you buy a car for $5,000 per each of the representative and senator, after 3 years, it's of no value, you should buy a new set of cars. Why? The reason is they want for you to go broke and borrow money. So these things are not in vain, they are calculated. You will only borrow money when you broke, but you get broke when you can't generate revenue. At the same time, when you begin to spend your money on things that are not necessary. Okay, so that's one way of saying, let's see how we can make sure that Liberia continues to borrow money from us. You don't generate by taxing raw material or digging gold and diamond. At the same time, you must spend your money. Look at the kind of money, it has just been reported, I don't know how true that is, 2 cars, vehicles for the president and the vice president. How much money they pay? Over $1 million or what? 300,000, 400,000? Why do you need that? But those guys that control us, they're telling us, spend more money. That's the only way you borrow money from us. So the whole economic system is tied to spend more money on unnecessary things and don't generate revenue. You will be forced to borrow money from us. So I'm saying, if we want to redeem ourselves, let's begin to raise revenue. At the same time, let's begin to reduce our expenses. I remember I participated as a panelist in 2017, December 17 specifically. I recommended that if we are serious, let us begin to ride keke. You cut down on gasoline, you cut down on repairs. If we're really serious to pay our debt, if we don't want to borrow anymore. And why? Most of the ministers don't go out of town anyway. And even if they want to go out of town, the roads are not good. So they're only using the cars. And of course, Monrovia is too small. And if you ride keke, you find where you're not going to be in traffic. That was my recommendation in 2017 to Governance Commission. I was invited by Dr. Amos Sawyer to tell the government where we were and what we should do. And I told the government at the time that the government was broke, they didn't have money. We're owning the commercial banks. I remember Cyrus Badio came out and said that was not true. But the following, within a week, weeks came out to say the government was broke. So I'm saying to you, the economic system that we have is not good for us. Rigged, as Donald Trump is saying, the economic system in the US is rigged. It's also rigged in Liberia. It's rigged in a sense they encourage you to spend more money, and at the same time, they discourage you from generating money where you can generate money from. Until we can change that system, we're going to be indebted. We have to say, no, we cannot continue to go this way. We have to change and generate money. And I'm saying it's a simple issue. The easier way to generate revenue is by taxing raw material. It's easy.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
We are talking about a new mindset here. We're talking about this man is turning our ideas and our way of doing things since 1822 totally upside down. You are the financial person. What says you?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Mr. Zeze. Is that how you said it? Zaza or Zeze? Hopefully
Don't
I'm
worry,
not
Zozo, Zaza, JJ, don't worry about me.
Hopefully I'm not pronouncing it wrong.
Yes.
I
It doesn't
absolutely
matter.
agree with you, and this is a thought you know, that we found the same line of thought we found that in Burkina Faso with Thomas Sankara when he said
Mhm.
debt is a cleverly managed conquest, meaning with debt, someone can control you, right? And he also said something very profound as well, that the how do you call it? The competitive strategy isn't an overlord, you know, with someone with someone with a gun in his hand anymore, sending somebody to come, you know, overthrow your president. It's economics, right? Meaning how we control you via how you spend, make you dependent upon us, which is true. And I wish, as I keep saying this, I wish that more people like him within the Senate, within the House of Representatives, or within our government in general would start thinking like him, right? Meaning, in as much that we said we're freed, right? We're free people. You're not free until you're economically free to make your own decision. If you're constantly relying upon other people to make financial decision, you are free, but you don't have that economic freedom, and your people by default do not have that economic mobility. So I absolutely agree with him on that. And to further this idea that, you know, debt is one of the most, you know, stringent limiting uh, object that is being used, right? It's it's something that is well known, right? But I think where he, you know, and I'm sure he probably aware of it, in as much that there is one individual such as him who is articulating these ideas, these new ideas now that he wants us to adopt, there will be other people within the Senate who are pay agents to counter that, even with the evidence and document that he continued to produce, right? So the biggest question to you, I think that I want to ask you is, how do you continue to, you know, you know, lay out these ideas in addition to, like you said, I think you mentioned an individual who counter your point in 2017 when you talked about this. How do you counter those individuals? You know, knowing very well what you are saying, there's evidence to support it, but there are people who either out of ignorance, or there are paid people who come out to counter, to undermine your idea. Because I think if you can have a strategy around that, then it will further elevate this idea that, you know, in addition to having freedom, we can now start adopting this idea of having economic freedom as well, which I believe Liberia doesn't have right now because of the debt.
That's a tough question, but I
Yeah.
think we all can begin to think about it and see how best to approach it.
Mhm.
Our party decided to launch this effort. For example, we'll be talking about the National Port Authority, for example.
Mhm.
They will spending money. The global reformist, the powerful and Her Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf,
Mhm.
was smart. She didn't say she was privatizing National Port Authority, but indirectly she did. She took
Right.
the management and gave it to APM. Now, go to the port and see what's happening. You have two sets of management teams, one foreign and one is local. And sucking the money that should be going to government is being sucked away.
Yeah.
For example, if you I send the chart there, see how much APM is donating or giving us a share of our fees. 12 million. But national port or the government is deducting 13 million for wages. And we don't even know how much APM collected in total to give us the 12 million. What is it? We don't know. Since 2014, National Port Authority stopped publishing financial statements. I'm not saying filing, I say publishing. As a state-owned entity, according to the Freedom of Information Act, you should publish the records of the entity that has cash balance, bank accounts, account receivable, accounts payable, prepay expenses, governor or board of directors pay, those things should be published for people to know. But National Port Authority since 2014 does not publish any information. The only information they publish is what is sent to the government of Liberia that will be included in the national budget, which doesn't include, for example, the performance. It doesn't include account receivable, notes payable. Basically, we don't even know how much cash National Port Authority has up to today's date. So we touch on the generation of revenue. We'll be going to the National Port Authority and say, look, yeah, you're wasting money. One, we need to know how much APM generated total revenue before we can determine the share they give us. Two, why are we deducting wages when it is APM that's performing the services and therefore they should be deducting wages? Better yet, if we're going to deduct wages, wages should be included in the fees that we receive. But they gave me 12 million and we deduct 18 million. So right there, you got a loss. So you see, we will move from one issue to another. Another issue we'll go to will be LEC. In 2021, June, the Millennium Challenge account Liberia closed off, and in their report they say everything was fine. But mind you, Money Captain was the chief executive of Millennium Challenge account, and they said things were fine. But then when he was appointed as chairman of the board of LEC, he said things were bad. Within a year, March 22, 2022, how was this possible? How come in June of 2021 you said things were bad, and then in March you say no, things were good, and in March you say things were bad? Then, of course, the ambassador to Liberia from the United States said, yeah, things were bad, but it was because of power theft. LPP said, well, okay, let's assume it's power theft, but can you help us to get the financial statement of LEC from 2015 to 2017, 2018? Why? Because within that period, the government or LEC received close to $700 million, 257 from Melina Challenge account, 314 from IDA, International Development Association, 104 from African Development Bank, and even if you add on the 40, 50 million they got from the government, it's going to be more than 700 million. So what happened? How come there's no financial statement telling us what they did with our money? How come? Why are we now saying, okay, no, things are bad, let's undertake another project? Then they jumped from there and undertook a project with CRE from Ivory Coast. And we signed an agreement with the particular company to supply electricity to 4 counties: Grand Cru County, Maryland County, Nimba County, and Grand Jida. But mind you, most of the citizens in our area make less than $5 a day. So was there a feasibility study to show that the privatization you're talking about is actually privatization, or you are hawking the government that today's date now we got 90 million to pay to Ivory Coast because we brought in customers who cannot pay for electricity, but they are receiving electricity. Again, another debt. So can we begin to say, well, no, we cannot? Yes, electricity is needed, we need it, that's true. But we can't afford it. Should we insist that we should have it?
Yeah.
You pay 19 million to the company Ivory Coast. Mind you, the company Ivory Coast then supply electricity to Ivorians, to all the Ivorians. No, because they know the Ivorians don't have the means to pay. But they came to Liberia because they know if the citizen from Grand Cru can pay, from Grand Jida can pay, the Republic of Liberia is going to pay. They say, okay, we got good customers. The people who consume it will not pay, but the government is going to pay us. So right now, we are hoping to pay CRE millions of dollars for electricity that was used by our citizens. That's true. But what are they getting? What are they giving the country in return? I'm talking about the citizens of Nimba County, Grand Jida, Grand Cru, and Maryland. Since 2016, this big believe that when there's electricity, there are jobs. Where are the jobs in Grand Cru? Where are the jobs in Nimba County? Where are the jobs in Grand Juda that will pay 19 million now to a company in the Ivory Coast because these people there using electricity? That's another way to hook me us.
Great,
It was
great
it
question.
was
Mr. Zeze, let's stick with the 10% here for a while. In
No,
your own estimation, if we did a 10% on the raw material, how much do you think we will gross coming in? I mean,
but
just an estimate. I know you may not have to know. What you thinking on here if we did a 10%? What would be the income?
we said for 3 companies, you're going to have 155 million.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's in our 155 million. 3 companies.
annually, right?
Yeah, annually, 3 companies.
Annually, right.
That Metal Steel, Beer Mountain,
Mhm.
and Firestone. Firestone, 11 million, and then 60 million, and then 85 million.
Hmm.
3 companies. We didn't even add timber. And we're saying don't include finished goods, only raw materials.
And you didn't add Liberia Agriculture Company. I mean, the
No, we
Liberia
didn't
Company.
add that. We didn't add that.
Wow.
So I think the biggest thing here, this is something that I'm seeing within is we don't have, and I keep saying this, we don't have people with financial acumen like yourself, right? We put people in power like the
No,
lawmakers.
sorry. No, so I disagree with you. You have people, but that's a problem in Liberia. And I can tell you, if you go to Liberia, don't work for government or don't work for NGOs. The moment you work for government NGO, you're not allowed to speak because of the Privacy Act.
But then, and the reason why I said that is because let me give you a quick story, right? You talk about LEC. So, and I will continue to say this. When, what's his name? Amar Kone just took over, right? I think for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, he ran this crusade about how he was, going to fight to hold LEC accountable. He even did this thing and met with the managing director of Money Capitan, and I even wrote it. He makes these posts on social media. I wrote a long narrative about how to go about that. He said, "Oh, you know what? This is a great piece. I would take it and go back to the and bring it back to my meeting." You made a point directly. We brought Maryland, Grand Cru, Grand Jita, and Nima via SIE. You made it perfectly clear. Those people do not have the ability to pay. Yet, we put them on leasing electricity from another country without doing a feasibility analysis, right? You rightly pointed out as well that we had 700 million go through the LEC. That could have built an additional maybe 80 megawatts power plant strategically in that area that would have covered those people, and even more than that. Those you could have bring on paying customer in addition to those covering those 4 counties. I had this back and forth with the senator saying, hey, you went to a business school right here in my state here, MIT, got an MBA at MIT. Supposedly MIT is a very quantitative driven school. Are you telling me you cannot do a quantitative analysis, like simple stuff that you do right now? How much does it cost to bring one customer online, right? Let's say if I want to bring each and every one of you online as a paying customer, from a consumer standpoint, how much is that going to cost LEC? That's where you start, right? The next step you go to is the business customer. How much does it cost to acquire each business customer online? You go from there, you go to the population growth, right? Because that would now tell you your energy need every year going forward by the population growth. How many customers are you bringing online? Go, quantify that with the population growth. That will be able to tell you. From there, you go to the LEC itself. Say, give me your data on your consumer and the business customer. Even if you can't analyze that data yourself because you're too busy, send it to university professors, economic department. This is what they do to solve real world problem. I told him all of that, right? They will crunch that data and bring it to you, say, this is how much it'll cost to bring each customer online. However, if it costs us $60 to bring in a customer online, or let's say $100, within 6 months or over a year, we will be able to recoup that. And from there on, we start making profit, right? If it makes sense from that standpoint, then you can say, okay, this is a good decision to go on to. You do the same thing with the business side of things, right? That will be able to tell you finally how much megawatts do you need to solve the country electrical problem. Where specifically do you need to put that to maximize profit for LEC so that way it become a self-sufficient entity? As I said, he made several, I think it was about 2 weeks crusade, making photos about being in a dark, how that could solve. I gave him that advice. Like you said, as always with people in government, it fizzled out. It fizzled out, and that was it. Move on to something else. So the problem here is not that we don't have solution. It's just that people who are reluctant, and as I said, people like yourself who, regardless of whether you're in government or not, who are very intentional about solving Liberian problems and making sure that they embark on that. That is what we don't have in the Senate or the House of Representatives.
Mr. Carter, a question too. Someone just sent me here. Honorable Zaza, you are the chair of this party, and this party is in coalition with this particular government. This is your government. How is it that you are empowered, you have the authority, you have everything to your disposal, and you are advocating something that is hopefully is part of your platform?
But if people listen to, I read the position statement of the party when we said we want to support the Unity Party. We clearly stated that these are objectives, our views, our policies. If they begin to do something else, then we'll tell the public that we don't support it. These are the views we believe in. We didn't support Boka because he and I from Lufa. We supported him because, or we supported the Unity Party because they gave us the impression that they were going to do better. And we said, okay, if you're going to do better, we'll give the support. However, if you fail, we said that clearly. We will be the first to come out to tell the Liberian people that you have failed. And we did that recently. We told the Liberian people that, yes, you might have achieved one or two things, but there are many missteps. We said that also.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this edition of On Point. I got with me the chairman of the LPP, a voice at this point. He sound from listening to his press release, the press conference. He has begun to say things now. He's sounding like a tree in the forest or a lone voice out there. But knowing Zaza from when I knew him, he has never wavered. He stands for what he believes in, and this is where we are. Let me welcome Mr. Joseph Tower. Mr. Tower, welcome. How are you in Houston?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, guys. I'm sorry that I came here a little late. I had some family engagement, but I tried to rush home as fast as I could. I was following the show. I followed Mr. Zaza now for a while. I follow him.
Mr. Zaza, you got fan club here.
And we share the same view. On most of the platform, I'm usually on FOL. I'm ostracized about some of the panelists for having exactly the same view, because I spent over 25 years of my life looking at every document from IMF to just how they deal in Africa. And when I try to point it out, every time I come here, I try to point it out, I'm outnumbered. People beat me down. And so I'm glad that Mr. Zaza is here today to present some of these same information that I have been pushing for a while.
Great, great. Mr. Zaza and I, we argue, but then at the end, then we merge again. Then we argue, then we merge. For some reason, this marriage we can't get a divorce. From 1986 all the way up, we worked together, went against each other, and still he has not changed. He is the same person that he is. Mr. Zaza, without criticizing, let us know where you are. What's the difference now from when you were a member of the struggle from the college days to where you are now? What is the reception? I know in your chat room, you got chat rooms, you got friends. You are not the only person at the party. Are you an orphan here, or how? Talk to us. How are you received on the ground when you talk about this? Then after they will go to your agriculture idea. How are you received?
Look, I think, Joseph Tao, thank you very much. There are many people who saying what I'm saying. And two, our party has been saying these things all for a long time. But we're not that many. In fact, people are calling us socialist, communist. But socialism, communism, those days are gone. So people are willing now to hear us telling them the truth. That the problem we got, for example, why you think Augustine Gaffon came back? In my view, he came back to make sure we borrow more money. He's a former employee of African Development Bank. He's under the influence of our powerful globalist, Madam Ellington Sirleaf. So I just think he just came back for the government to borrow more money. Now, a lot of people are saying it. There are many people who never used to accuse the World Bank before, but today they are saying it. There were many people who never used to think that the IMF, in fact, they thought the World Bank was a charitable institution that was helping people to fight poverty. But now we all say, no, the World Bank doesn't fight poverty anymore. It is actually taking money away from us. People thought the NGO were good institutions. Now people believe that NGO comes in to take the money that they brought.
Yeah.
So no, people are aware now. Then it's not like before. Before you hear one or two persons talking. But now these people are aware that there's a difference. That people know that people who lend you money, they are like a pawn shop. When you carry a watch, they don't want for you to redeem it. Because if they sell it, they get more money. They want for you to default. So a lot of people are aware now. It's not just Zaza talking anymore.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to On Point. We are talking about life and death here. Mr. Zaza is telling us that when we talk about life and death, we are not talking about guns and bombs and grenades anymore. We are talking about the financial institutions, like the AIDS virus. When you try to find some cure, then they mutate into something else. We're dealing with IMF now. We deal with the African Development Bank. They have brought it down to our levels. And they also control our central banks. So until we can collectively realize what is going on, we are in a jam. And people like Yanquoi Zaza, we got to pray that he's healthy. Because, Mr. Zaza, your adversaries, you are going against the Liberian government that is the representative of the African and World Bank. All our employees, all our top people, they are all members of the two banks. You got the Firestone, you got Metal Steel, all the major corporations, individuals that will descend on you. How are you prepared to deal with this? We're talking about one man or one idea against tons of people who don't want to see the day of light.
Well, you are now an advocate for what I'm preaching, the fact that you invited me.
That's correct.
So I'm not alone.
Yep.
You are now an advocate for better Liberia. And of course, you are now saying indirectly, the fact that you agree with me, or the fact that you invited me on this show is an indication that we all are in this fight together. The last time we were on ELBC, and the interviewer told me not to call anybody name because corruption is not an issue. And of course, we ended the conversation because I disagree with him.
Yeah.
You're not doing that. The fact that you agree with me tells me that I'm not alone. And two, some of us reached to the point, that, oh, hey, it's better to say the things that you should say than be afraid because you're not going to get a job or somebody's going to beat you in the street. Anybody can beat you anytime, or maybe if worse situation to be killed, so what? I passed that stage. We have to redeem Liberia. Look, if you're in Liberia, around me, things are so bad. Very, very bad. Look at the children going to school. Almost everybody owns a school here because that's the way to make quick money. But the children tell the principals or the people who run the schools, you got to give a whole day for us to play football. If you don't give it to us, we'll walk away from your school. And the owner of the school, because he wants money, he agrees or she agrees. So they take whole Thursday that's it. You and our resources were tightened to 1 hour, not more than that. But people have a whole day. Not all the schools now, but some of the schools. A whole day. You go around here, go in Monrovia. When the foreign games are on, nobody is studying. Everybody watching the game. Go in the streets, Mexican streets. You got more sellers than buyers. I walked from a CDC headquarters all the way to City Hall, all the way to Camp Johnson Road, just walking from store to store, trying to figure out what are we producing. Nothing. All we do, and even go to the central bank, you see in the area, money borrowed for activities. They got trade, real estate, banking, agriculture. Go to agriculture. 7%, only 7% of the money is borrowed for agriculture. You go to trade, huge amount. Why? Because we're not producing. We buy to sell to survive. You go on the streets, children with chiclet, with one shirt running behind vehicles to sell. If you continue that kind of activity, you're going to have a civil war. No way out, my friend, no matter what you do. So for me, it better I speak out than sit down for me to die in a civil war. Because I'm telling you, if you have a civil war, you're not going to escape easily. You saw what happened with the 14-year war. People who thought they were never going to be affected were the first people to be dead. So I'm saying to you, children are not going to school. They're not learning, but they want to live a good life because they see on TV that people living good life. And therefore, you become a target. You can't walk down the streets. You live in ghetto homes. You got fence, you got security. That's not going to be sufficient if in the next 5, 10, 15 years, we do not increase employment. Or you're going to be like Haiti. Gangs took over Haiti, right? Why? No employment. So you're going to have the same thing in Liberia. So if you say you don't want to die, you're going to die tomorrow in the hands of the masses.
Someone just sent me something here, and it's definitely in line with what you are saying here. The uneven wage bill. They just sent me the CEO of LEC Money Captain makes $17.514 thousand a week, and the COO the COO who is a Ghanaian, Kwame Peng he makes $26.655 thousand per month. $26.55. $26,000. Can you imagine, Yanquoi Zaza, you are talking about revenue collection here. You are talking about, let's look at the wage bill. What will it take? Why would one person make 27,000, one other person make 28 or 18,000? And we don't have the current we are paying for. Mr. Zaza talked about his wage.
But again, what happened? G. Mike was in Liberia, right? When Ellen was about to take over, what was the slogan? People who have money can steal. People who are poor will steal. So if we don't want people to steal, we should pay them good money. So I know when I worked at Commerce, the salary for a minister was $18,000 per annum, US. And I know this because as director at Commerce, I was making $10,000, which was the same amount they pay as assistant minister. If you go to the budget now, President Salif increased or double her salary. At the time, the presidential salary was the base salary. I'm not talking about all the allowances that she gets or a president gets, was 32 million. Oh, 30, yeah, not 32,000 per annum. But now it's 76,000. 100%. So we introduced a system to suck more money from our revenue to pay wages. And why? Because those who lend money want for us to borrow more money. So they fool us that the only way we can, or one of the ways to fight corruption, is to pay these excessive allowances, excessive salaries. So anybody in the managerial area of the LEC, National Port Authority, Maritime, or we should pay such a money. And that's where I had a difference with Honorable John Malou. When he was receiving whatever he was receiving, I heard a huge amount of money. I called him and told him, as an auditor, you should be setting an example. If you get that kind of money because you think you're fighting corruption, what happened to your lieutenants? And they're not getting that kind of money. They're going to be corrupt. So you're not setting a good example. Two, you should be discouraging the government from paying that kind of money because that becomes a standard. And mind you, what did the senator and representative do? They went to increase their salaries. Check it out. I wrote an article on it. Because it was Dr. J. Crystal, the late Richard Tauber, and Anthony Sayre. I mentioned their names in the article I wrote, that this was not the time to be paying $10,000 to a minister. And of course, Dr. Crystal came back to hit at me, and I went back to hit at him. And the issue died. But then the lawmakers say, oh, okay, people are using their salary in order to replace us. So in order for us to have money to run for election, we need to increase our salaries. That's what's happening. So the chief executive started making salaries, high salaries. The lawmakers say, okay, if we don't stop you, we can't stop you. We need also to make high salaries so you cannot run against us and defeat us based on the money you receive from the government. So that's why the kind of increases are taking place. And moreover, the people who guiding us, the IMF and the World Bank, are telling us it's a good idea. Check over Africa. Salaries are high. It's not only Liberia. They're misleading us in order to continue to be in debt. Today, Ghana has defaulted. Why? And mind you, your good president, our good president, Obama, told us Ghana, Kenya, and Egypt were good countries. They had good economic models. We should follow them. But those three countries today are representing, when you say mismanagement, and of course, taking debt that they can't pay. The three countries represent Africa. So you see,
Mr. Gibman, can I weigh in?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. Carter, it's nice to meet you. Mr. Zaza, it's nice to be on the same platform with you today. I came here in the late 90s, and I went to a lot of conferences because when I came in, I was already ideologically aware as an African center person based on my orientation from back home. And then when I got here, it got reinforced. because the actual things, the veil, the things that I've tried to understand. When you are in Africa, you really can't understand it. When you get here, then you see the deception, you see the hypocrisy, and everything just opened up. So I went to many conferences. I was doing science, but I was doing science, but I was actually focused on a lot of the social issues that were going on. And to point out some of the stuff that Mr. Zaza is pointing out, we had a discussion many times in many other forums for almost 20 years. Ellen Johnson's Salif government coming to power. My uncle, may his soul rest in peace, but in 2005, I was telling him that this lady was going to destroy the country. And that is what we're seeing here. All the failures that you see from where to this present government was a foundation that she set at the directive of the IMF and the World Bank. I asked this question on this focus. I mean, on this program several times. We are talking about corruption. McCarthy was sitting in Liberia, pointing at corruption, screaming all over the place. But I told them that the United States is the one that is actually facilitating, and they're in the institutions. Okay, if there is corruption in Liberia and the representative senators are making more money than your representative senators, why are you subsidizing their budget so that they can continue to pay payroll? The high salary that Mr. Zaza is talking about, this was an IMF and World Bank design program.
Yeah.
They don't need the money back because when they gave you loan, they have created nothing. They didn't give you anything. It's just a line of credit. They type some number on the computer. You don't produce it. You don't do anything. This is a Ponzi scheme that they're running.
Yeah.
Imagine if Liberia, if we just sit in Liberia right now, we have the ability to say, okay, you know what, everybody, this is the standard that you will follow Ghana. If you need money, we're going to give you a line of credit. We're going to go on the computer and type up some numbers. Now we have access. We own your gold, we own your diamond, we own your waterfront, we own all this stuff. Imagine how quickly Liberia become wealthy. There's a Ponzi scheme. So when we point this up, I don't know how people don't see it.
Well, someone just texted that when Honorable Zaza talked about possibility of these things bringing civil war, if you are not internationally following what's happening in the world, I think yesterday the Republic of Gambia sent 150 of their commandos or military personnel to Sierra Leone. The prices, the inflation and the prices for commodities on the local level have gone through the roof, that the people have begun to basically set the country ablaze. So if you're sitting here and thinking that what Honorable Zaza is saying, it is a joke, don't look any further than what's happening today in Sierra Leone. Ghana, like he said, they have defaulted. The inflation rate was 54%. Yep. 54%. How can you survive in a nation where the inflation is 54%? They defaulted.
And Mr. Gibman, this happened at the time that Ghana found oil where they're supposed to generate more revenue. If I followed that, Hillary Clinton was one of those people that started to threaten, because they were the one that had their small oil company like they would have did in Labrador Crook stuff, coming in and bidding for oil black at low level for 20,000, 40,000, and taking and selling it for millions. When the guy that died, when he tried to resist, he was threatened with sanctions and all kinds of stuff. So here is Ghana with all the oil. They can barely even keep light on. They're even having power issue. Wow. This is what we are talking here.
Honorable Zaza, Mr. Carter, you want to chime in before I go to Zaza? Because he talked about the agriculture. He said the government will play a role. We come here. Why he take a bio that you want to chime in so we can go back to him on that one. How does government get involved with agriculture? Maybe he got some idea too.
Yeah, and it's without system that we have set up, I think one fundamentally we don't understand economics and what drives productivity in a country. Either that, or we automatically assume that, you know, I work in finance. So I can't sit here and say debt is a bad thing, even though I know it can be cleverly used as a tool. If you borrow responsibly, meaning if you take capital that was invested to you and invested in infrastructure, let's say I take, I give you 300 million, and you take that 300 million and build an infrastructure network that connects every county. It make it easy now for someone who produces uh, quantum of data ball in Lofa to not only be able to sell it in Lofa, but to be able to transport it to other counties where they might be needed, right? So you borrow, but you invest it properly and make sure that it pays off, which can allow you to be able to pay back that loan. And then you do it again responsibly, right? The problem that we have, one, is we don't understand, you know, how to borrow responsibly. Two, when we're going to borrow, we don't do cost benefits analysis, right? We just borrow because we think, or the IMF comes in and say, this is what you need to do. We don't consult our own due diligence to say whether this makes sense for the country. We just go blindly and do it. And three, we have people in government, as I'll continue to say, from the Senate, the House of Representatives, who benefits from the bad structure transaction. But on the part of agriculture, I believe we have the ability to feed ourselves. We can do it. First, it has to be one of the big major problem has to do with how the country is currently set up right now. Everything is centralized in Monrovia. We take some of the great working labor force from other part of the counties and think every one of them flow to Monrovia, thinking that that's where the economic hub is, right? So we take these people from the counties without having the infrastructure to contain them in a place and be able to work, right? That's one of the biggest problem. For agriculture, I will say this quickly and I will end. Ghana that we talked about right now, Ghana went through the same thing. From 1970, if you guys can go look this up, from 1970 to 1983, Ghana inflation went up to all the way to 123%. 123%, right? They came out with two systems, two plans. One was the economic reform plan, and the other one was a structural adjustment plan. Those two plans were able to bring Ghana out of that and put them on the trajectory all the way up to 2006, when the rest of the world had the global financial crisis, before they defaulted again. So if you have people who are intentional about understanding what economic model to pursue, have a plan towards that, and borrow responsibly to fund those plans, you can come out of these tragedy that we have right now. What our problem is that when we came out of the war, no one ever sat down to say, what does Liberia need for itself, and where do we need to take us? We assume that the former president, Ellen, we assume that because she worked in the World Bank and all these financial institutions, she had a better idea. But she set us in a place and created a structure that cannot be broken right now. And I don't like to say this, nobody wants war, but the things that can lead to that, the system divide, the economic inequality and equity that leads to that and make people feel resentful, are the system we've been building since we came out of war, to the point we now have a president who's buying bulletproof vehicles to protect himself. There's a mindset. If you were doing right, why would you want to be driving around in a bulletproof vehicle? Since we came out of war, tell me which president bought a bulletproof vehicle? Unless you know that there is a discourse in the country economically where people are not having economic mobility or opportunity, and that discourse is being pointed directly at you, Jerome, you will now start taking cautionary steps to say, I'm not doing the right thing, and there could be a consequences here. It's what I call subtle. It is not stated, but it is subtle, you know. And this is where we're heading. We continue to have these economic inequality, where you see there's a big gap in our system. Currently, right now, as Mr. Zaza pointed out, where people are struggling. From what I've heard, there are more kids out of school right now than any time in the history of our country since the post-war, right? So with those economic impact, inequality, inequity, blatant corruption that we're seeing day to day are the consequences of why the president went and bought bulletproof vehicles, because he hears that and he's aware of it, but he's not doing the things to address it, but he protects himself first. Nobody wants war, you know. I will hope that we can go to the poll and vote him out, but he himself is aware of it. That's what he's, you know, he went out and bought those vehicles. So this is not something that Mr. Zaza is saying. This is something that we're seeing, and the effects are playing out right in front of our face.
Thank you. Welcome, Victor Nambe. Welcome, veteran.
Thank you very much, man. It's good to be here. Apologies. You know,
listen,
the Eagles.
I told Yanquoi Zaza your Philadelphia Eagle were playing, so he should excuse you. He knows that. He lives in Newark, New Jersey, and New York. Staten Island, so you know about your Eagle fan. You're a fanatic. But welcome. How was it? I know you won today.
We did, and thank you very much. Welcome, Chairman Zaza. It's good to be here.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Honorable Zaza, you in one of your write-up, you talk about the agriculture sector. You say the government should have a major role in the agriculture sector, but the history of our agriculture or feeding ourselves from the PF84 and all that, we know that there are some the same way the banking industry is keeping us down. There are other major factors, major players, international players who would not want to see Zaza feed himself.
Thank you very much. Again, let me quickly emphasize the issue of what I was talking about. LPP and the progressive people suffer a lot because of war. If the coup had not taken place, either Bacchus Matthew or Tipota would have been president. And we knew that. And that's what we wanted. So the coup d'etat was not the thing that we wanted. And today we don't want it. We want for Mr. Walker to stay there until 2009 so we can defeat him when he campaigns. Coming back to agriculture. So we are at a crossroad. We have tried to deal with agriculture on individual level, government hands out. Whether it was Jim T. Phillips, whether it was Tauber, individual farmers, primitive farming, we went through that. The question is, if food is a major issue in our country, should we leave it to individuals? I'm saying we try that. Well, okay, first, people try to say, okay, look, there's no money. We created the Agricultural Development Bank to focus on agriculture. Meaning, if you went there, they will guide you, they will help you, and they'll give you loan that will not be very expensive compared to the commercial bank. Because the government took money, instead of government giving the money to individuals, they say if you did that, people will think the money is free and they will not do the right thing. So we created a commercial bank and gave them the money, and they were lending the money to people who want to invest in agriculture. We didn't succeed. The war came. During the early years, they put aside 181 million for agriculture. The money is gone. There's no food. You don't have agriculture. We didn't stop there. The philanthropists, good people, peace-loving people say, look, you all need to produce food. You all need to have food. They put aside 532 million between 2013 to 2017. If we add all up, I wrote an article on that. The money was supposed to be used to either buy food from World Food Program or produce our own food. That money disappeared. Then, of course, money was donated by Gaddafi. That is 60 million, I don't know the exact amount. And the intention was to produce food in Lofa. We got the land, we got equipment, we got the workers to do the job. What happened to the Lofa Rest project? We can't get a good story. Somebody say, well, it was an investor. Somebody say, no, Gaddafi gave us money. And when they overthrew Gaddafi, Gaddafi stopped giving us money. Okay, fine. But we had the equipment, we had the land, we had the people to do the job. Why the government did not continue? Because we left it in the hands of individuals. The intent of that particular project was not only to grow rice, it was to absorb the former combatants who were ruining the streets of Monrovia or urban cities, to reduce the crime rate, to reduce the possibility of having gangsters in Monrovia. Today, I'm telling you, you go around and the police are reporting on that. They got ghettos, they got gangs around. And you go somewhere, they say, don't go there. Why? We don't have jobs. People are looking for jobs. So now I'm saying the government should play the role, because we said individuals should do it or investors should do it. They are not doing it. When investors come to Liberia, they go to gold, diamond, timber, iron ore. They don't go to producing rice because it takes too long to make the profit. And there's too many risks. So I'm saying, or LPP is saying, Jawan Gongle is saying, let's let the government get involved. And how to do it? Bring in the town chief, the paramount chief, the superintendent, agriculture, carry, the banks, bring them together, sit together and say, look, we have to produce food, potato, arrow, rice, yam, produce meat, fish, pig, cow, sheep. Maryland be responsible for maybe producing cow and goats. River says maybe get ready for fish. Lofa, rice, Cape Town, rice, or maybe cassava, yam, and potato. And besides that, create a competitive system and drive the people to say, if you can produce, we'll have a celebration at the end of the year to reward people. In addition to that, form cooperatives. Don't leave it to the individuals. Government alone should not do the job. No, form cooperatives. Beyond.
Well, Victor, you got an LPP, you got a UPP, you got all the folks here talking the same thing from day one. We've been talking about these things. Here we are. I'm looking at, okay.
I'm back.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Form cooperatives. Beyond forming cooperatives, make sure that people in managerial area have something that they will deposit with the bank of the government, that in case they are involved in stealing, we can hold on to it. Like that, in my mind, people will be careful not to steal resources that do not belong to them, because they know why? You know why? There's something else that people can hold on to. If they don't have assets, let them bring somebody to stand to say, if John Brown doesn't pay, I'm responsible. You reduce the possibility of people stealing the money. Then, of course, work will be done. So if the government is working with farmers to produce, the farmers don't have to travel to sell. We can create like LPMC, go and collect the food from them. The farmers don't have to worry that somehow will cheat them, because government will have to pay fair prices for the profit, for the farmers to make profit. And beyond that, government can also use the food now to feed the children going to school, to feed the prison inmates, to feed the patients in the hospital. You don't have to buy food anymore to do that. In addition to that, government should make it a policy that from here on, When there is a government program, local food will have to be used, except it's not available. Yes, we can mix it up, but nowadays you go to government programs, you got food that imported from the great United States of America, where you have a president that want to deport us. If you did that, you create employment, you increase taxation, you stop people from migrating from Peaceable, Zaza, my town, to Monrovia because they will have jobs. If you did that, you're gonna have LEC because people will have the money to buy electricity. If you did that, the corporations would be borrowing money from the banks. You got 6 counties that don't have commercial banks, sir. Lofa County is one of them. It has a huge population, but no commercial bank. Why? Because you do not have companies that will borrow money from the commercial bank. Commercial banks don't survive on Western Union cashing or cashing check. No, they rely on people paying interest to them because they lend them money to go and do businesses. But you don't have businesses in River G, in Grand Cru, in Grand Cape Mount, what's the other town? In River Says. You don't have big businesses there. But if you begin to own and you have cooperatives will become so huge because they'll be involved in a lot of things. They'll be able to borrow money from a bank. Now the bank can become a good consumer of electricity. To have an electricity that is profitable, you need industrial entities and you need commercial entities as customer of LEC. Regular residential entities or customer of LEC cannot make LEC profitable. So you see, it's a win-win if government gets involved.
Mr. Nangwe, from the time we've been with the Baka Mafia group, we've been talking about this rice cartel in Liberia. In fact, it was the rice issue that broke this whole thing. Mr. Zaza is talking about the same thing. How do we produce when the people got their boots on our necks to not be able to produce rice or anything so we can rely on it? It's a cartel, Mr. Nangwe.
That's true. And again, welcome, Chairman. And that has been the handicap of the progressive movement, right? We don't have the money. We have the ideas, but we don't have the funding available to us.
And the power.
And yes, and Mr.
State power. Back on my to call it state power.
State power. So I know I was coming in and listening to, some of the brilliant clarifications he's making from the NPA to the where Money Captain was. I forgot before he came to LEC, all of that. He's right. But the lack of funding by the progressive movement has produced, unfortunately, a situation where the progressive space has been hijacked. He talked about Timothée Matthews being president had it not been for the coup. Of course, Samuel Doe came. We fertilized the ground. Samuel Doe came and hijacked the process. Charles Taylor came in, hijacked the process. In many ways, you can say Ellen Johnson came in, hijacked the process. You can even say Weah came in and wrote on the progressive, the populist sentiments and hijacked the process. So it's unfortunate, but it is happening, and we haven't been able to find a way to self-support these ideas. And so we always look to different sources of funding. And they say who pays the piper plays the tune. I believe that's the expression. That English business. And I go English.
I go English.
What I want to know is what is the state of the LPP? I can tell you in the UPP, we are beset by leadership squabbles. We're having issues with our leadership setup. I know Tier 1 Gonglo, Councillor ran as a stand-up LPP. I know he endorsed the current president. His running mate is in the government, but lately he has come out and made some sharp observations that he believes, the government is not managing well. So, where is the LPP? Is the LPP on a rescue train, or is it a part of the opposition?
We were never on a rescue train, never. We only said we'll support them for them to win. And we made it clear in our pronouncement that we're supporting you with the hope that we read a 10-point agenda that we hope he's going to follow. If he doesn't follow, we are not with him. We have a moral obligation to break away, and we broke away long ago. This is why you hear us speaking. So far, I think we have come up with 3 articles or papers. We spoke about our reservation, that they claim to have achieved 74% of the deliverables. We told them no, they were not telling the truth. We didn't stop there. We accused the law.
Internet connectivity.
Yeah,
right?
he's having issues there.
Let's see. When we talk about how can a country function when you don't even have basic, this man is talking economic here,
Right.
and it is just
Yes,
yes. Go ahead. I know one of the things you need to talk about is internet connectivity because we can't do anything. Go ahead.
And we spoke about the lawmakers stealing $548,000 from the government, and they should pay back. We didn't stop there. We also said that the Boca government is undertaking excessive loans, especially the $414 million that he wants to borrow for agriculture. Now we came back with the issue of the 10% try to generate more revenue. Pretty soon, some issues on his recent statement by the State Department that corruption is preventing investors from relocating to Liberia. I mean, it's an indictment by the United States government, indicting the Boca administration. So since it doesn't have to say anything now, the United States that Boca is depending on to defend is saying, Boca, you're doing wrong.
But isn't that a thing, though, Mr. Chairman? Why hasn't the opposition found its voice? Why does it have to be the United States government calling out the government? What is the problem with us in the opposition?
But I just said to you, we came out with position statement long ago. We disagree with the government. We told them, you say you achieve 74%. That's not true. Inclusiveness, that's not true. Corruption, you're not fighting corruption. For example, we said that, yes, you established the asset and recovery. But where is that? That is already dead. They're not even serious. Look at the asset declaration, only 26%. We say that. We also attacked the lawmakers for walking away with $500,000 for the retreat they had in Buchanan. We wrote an article on that. It's all around. We've been speaking out. Yes, maybe we should do it jointly, but we've been speaking out. It's not only the State Department. In fact, if anything, the State Department is late because they know the inside story. They should not be allowing him to come. I'm not talking about the United Nations trip, but other trips, if at all they believe he's not fulfilling the promises he made. They should not allow him to be coming to travel.
Mr. Zaza, Mr. Carter, real quick, I want you to address this, and then Mr. Taiwo can do that. This was so funny, it was embarrassing. An American guy called me, and I almost disowned my own country. He brought this to my attention. He says, the labor minister spoke that the economy grew by 4.7%, but our unemployment rate is 95.7%. So the question is, how can the economy grow and everybody is unemployed? Mr. Carter, you the finance man, tell me, how can the economy grow and everybody is unemployed? Now, he said 95 percent. I'm talking about Mr. Cruz. He said 95.7% of the nation is unemployed, but the country grew, the economy grew by 4.7%, and he quoted the World Bank.
Yeah, and it goes back to, I think Mr. Tao pointed that out. Is this delusion that we have that everything that comes from the IMF is accurate, to the point we don't have Liberians or who really understand the economic makeup of their country. If they do, even that is a second, they put that on a back burner and they take whatever the IMF and the World Bank puts out as a Bible, right? I agree with the individual who disagree. Productivity is what grows the economy, right? So let's say if you say your economy grows by 4.5%, that meant there was a lot of people employed who were producing things within that 12 months the economy was measured. But if you are saying that your economy grew by 4.5 or 4.7%, but you also have a 95% unemployment rate, there is a disconnect. So someone is lying to you. It's either you're taking verbatim what the IMF is telling you and regurgitating it, as opposed to really understanding your own country's economic data. Meaning, what is the most productive item, thing that is being produced in Liberia? Is it rice? Is it gold? Is it diamond? Where are these things being produced? Besides the government itself, who is the major employer in Liberia, right? If you don't have a thriving private sector in Liberia besides the government, there is no way you can tell me that your economy grew by 4.7 or 4.5 or 5% or more. You know, where is that productivity coming from when 95% of the economy, the country is unemployed? And there is, I think there was a post here that said we do have the money, but we just mismanage it. I believe we have the resources as well. We just don't know how to produce within Liberia. There is money in Liberia, there is talent in Liberia, but I think our problem as a nation is that we think that we have to go beg from outside, meaning that anybody who comes in power, they first, uh, you know, thing that they have to do is go on these foreign tours, right? And the success on our foreign tours, we equate it to being successful. Let's say if these three tours that the president made, South Korea, the US, and China, had he come out with a lot, we would have been celebrating this, right? We would have been celebrating this as if this was a success. Recently, I keep saying this, the HPX uh, deal that I just signed, 650 million megatons of iron ore in that corridor from Yekapa to Bikana. 96, if you measure, is 96 miles. At the time of this signing, each megaton was being sold for $92. That is $62 billion that was sitting on right in that 96 miles corridor. That's at the time they were signed. If you go back in June, that 6 megatons is worth 72 billion. Let's put this in perspective. Mr. Nangwe is the one coming to invest in Liberia. I'm Liberia. I'm sitting on 62 billion. I don't have the money as we are as a country. I said, Mr. Nangwe, I understand you're going to deploy all your money, your resources, your equipment, and everything that you're going to deploy. Let's do a 40-60 split, or let's do a 70 30 split. I take 30%, you take the other 70% because you put in all your resources. Do you know how much money that is going to be? Our budget is not barely $1 billion. Do you know how much money? But we have the resources there, that is right there. But our problem is how to leverage it. One, and how to negotiate this kind of contract. So again, as I said, I will say this quickly and I'll end. The disconnect is not about what the productivity is in the country, is that we don't understand our economic makeup as a country, right? How to exploit it, how to put talent to work, how to leverage our university to produce some of the best talent and be able to have that economic advantage to compete in that region. That is our biggest problem.
Great.
Thank
Mr. Tower.
Mr. Carter, just a second, Mr. Carter, let me ask you this. If we expand on what you just laid out there, right? Doesn't it make sense that the government can list some of these findings, these natural sources on the stock market, and list them on the futures market? I
Yep.
mean, if you're speculating 62 to 72 billion, obviously you can peg that to the stock market, and of course, as it goes up, then people can buy futures on the Liberian resources on the stock market, and we can make a lot of money from this.
Yeah, and that's sorry, maybe you didn't explain your question. Sorry.
No, I was asking whether that is not possible, and why is it now we're not thinking about it.
And that's exactly what I did. So and again, it's very, somebody always said we have the talent, we have the resources, right? Meaning we may not have enough human capital to be able to quantify these things, but we have the very few that, like you said, let's say we realize we have 650 million megatons, right? If you're the government, I'm the investors, I have all the money. Your advantage is that, hey, you're doing it. I've looked at this thing on the global market. This is how much it's trading at, right? You can structure the contract in a way that it is based on what is being traded at. You're still benefiting. That is one aspect. The other aspect is, and I think this is where we get robbed a lot. Transfer pricing. Transfer pricing meaning of how the the deal is structured. Meaning, if HPX is registered in the United States, we're not doing business with their subsidiary that is registered in Liberia, right? We're doing business with both. Because if you do business with just a subsidiary that is registered in Liberia, what I can do, I can say the subsidiary in Liberia owes a management fee to the parent company in the USA, 50%. So whatever resources are produced in our country, 50% will go to the parent company before you, Liberia, even get to take your tax dollars on the 50% that leaves in our country. So that's one of the way we get robbed. And these things happen because we don't look at the global market, the resources we have, and we don't structure the contract, like you said, look at the future market, how things are trading to be able to leverage that. Right.
Correct. Because it looks like at the time of the structure, we lock the prices in at that time.
Exactly.
Not accounting for the possible fluctuation in the future. But thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Tower, real quick, when we're talking about food production, agriculture, there is a major pushback from our people, I would call it our colonial masters. The United States sends a lot of food subsidies to Liberia. Then the Lebanese and the rice cartel, they are there, and they will push back against Honorable Zaza's idea that we can do these things. And in reality, they do not want us to succeed.
Yeah. So first, I will address this like this. I will start here. There is something, the IMF and the World Bank model. There is something that you can grow without your economy can grow without development. The economy can grow without it affecting positively anybody within that country. These are the criminal systems set up, and this is how they project the numbers. The HPS project, they project that as part of your growth. All of the NGOs and stuff, and all of the so-called grant or loans, and all of that stuff that really they managed. They project all that, but that money does not even come to the government. They manage it, and that money really don't make it into Liberia. They include other than the projection numbers. And because they are dealing with people, who the mind have been falsified. Let us do ourselves a favor. Read the work of Dr. Amos Wilson, he's a psychologist, The Falsification of the African Consciousness and Blueprint for Black Power. He laid these things out. What am I saying here? The wealth of our people is not in their land, it's in their head. Okay? Look at where we find ourselves. I was in Washington, D.C. It was in 2007. And I asked a question because there was so-called people from Harvard and other places, business school, and they're supposed to have the plan that they will help Africa. They all want to help Africa, right? Great. So they talk and they say all this stuff about the poverty and everything else. The concept of poverty, by the way, is just a mindset they're creating in us. So then I raised my hand and I asked a question. I said, sir, I want to ask you a question. I know where you stay in the suburb and you stay in a gated community and you also have everything. And somewhere several miles away, there is a very poor and rundown neighborhood where there is crime and the hopeless and infested. Now, let me ask you, if you in your neighborhood, you are so self-sufficient, you're so wealthy, do you by any means go into that poor neighborhood where there is nothing, where you say they are poor for you to get your daily bread and for you to survive every day? And his face turned red. And I said, I'm asking this question because there's the misconception that you continue to give the Africans. Africa don't need you. You see, in order for people to dominate you, they have to flip it upside down. It is only through deception that people can rule you. So Africa, they need you. They need Africa more. If Africa found a way to do the closest door, all of the so-called civilization collapse. They depend on you for them to survive. So to come to a point here before I address, so look, this is a policy called humanitarian imperialism. This is how the Civil War, because they found out in the 70s and in the 60s and in part of the 80s, that coup was not enough to destroy the entire social economic fabrics of the society, to pretty much destroy the culture, because the culture is the strength. So they sat down and they said that the next thing is going to be civil war, that is going to prolong, sponsor all sides, turn the entire country inside out, destroy the will of the people. Then they rush in with the NGOs. The NGOs are agents. They're agents of wherever country they come from to come and implement the political, economic, cultural policies to entrench it. As Mr. Zaza was saying here, in Monrovia, you've been there, all of us, we've been there. You see kids all over on the street selling just about anything they can find. Those kids are not in school. That is not the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, the US, the USAID. That is not their concern, right? Sweden, all of these people, UK. But they want our people to stop the sending and poro. We're in the villages where there are no schools because those people need to go to school. And I asked a question in one of the meetings. There is no poro and sender here in Monrovia. They are not in school. Why haven't you put them in school? School is that important? But you see, the goal is to continue to de-enculturate you, to destroy your culture, to destroy your entire paradigm. And this is what it is. So now, coming to this, the agriculture, right? Look at what happened here. The government supposed to be involved. Agriculture, stuff like industries, agriculture for you to lead anything, it is a state. All major industries are sponsored and subsidized by state. Don't let the West try to fool you. I work in oil and gas. The US government subsidized Chevron, Exxon, all these guys in the tune of almost $350 billion a year. Even though they make $3 to $4 billion a quarter in profit. So you see, when they're talking about socialism, they run the biggest socialist programs. But the one for them to tell, so IMF will come in when you're supposed to build hospitals and schools. They tell you, no, that's social program. You don't need to subsidize anything, remove subsidies. But here they're subsidizing because the only way you can actually run a country, because the government hold on to all the resources of this nation. What is this stuff supposed to be used for? It's supposed to be used for the good and the betterment of the people.
Great.
So this is what So the
Yeah,
government need to get involved. No, let me learn. The government need to get
yeah, go
involved.
ahead.
The government need to get involved and fund this. Okay, and the way it's supposed to happen is not just about giving people loan, but create an actual program, structure it to where people that are credible, people that are already in it, not like the Ellen Group and the how you call them, the Ellen Snow and these people. When the U.S., if you look, I mentioned this here before. There are 3 areas that any country need to survive: education, health, and energy. These 3 areas, Liberia was discouraged. All Africa is discouraged, but we're just talking about Liberia. Like, no, don't fund these places. NGOs and international donors will fund these places. So the UN, the US, the Sweden, they came in, they said they will fund your agriculture. So you hear it here. What is that guy name? That guy that came from, they say PPP. He always on this program here. Some guy, he worked in that area before. No, we don't. Waka didn't put money there because our international partners, they put a lot of money in there. From 2006 to 2017 or so, USAID, the US, they put $780 million into your agriculture. Tell me, can you show any definitive proof that they put that money in there? But they want to do that so that you will relinquish your area, then they strangulate you. Okay? When it comes to the contracts, Liberia don't write no contract. When it comes to concession, the contracts are written in Washington, D.C., in Britain, they are brought into you, and then they're passed.
Yeah.
You don't write nothing. You don't write anything. And then the IMF and World Bank, the loan they gave you under concession loan that will make you, for you take this loan, you must give this up. This is what they're screaming and shouting when you go to China. Because China, it is not that they're good or what. That is not even my point here. Is that they're dealing differently. You are dealing with them with infrastructure and development loan. Something that you can see tangible stuff. The US said that they put billions of dollars in Liberia on Ellen. Look at what can you point out. China, less than 500 million. What happened? You see airports, you see highways, you see trade schools, you see hospitals. You see the difference?
Yeah.
So the West not be screaming, and we should not join them, that our president cannot go here, international partner. No. Let them, okay, China gave us this. What do you have? What can you offer? Compete.
Let me add a point. Let me add a point to that quickly.
Okay.
1 minute.
Real quick. Let me go to Mr. Zaza.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me add a point quickly. I agree with what Mr. Tower is saying in terms of how in this country, in the US, we subsidize the agriculture. If you guys, this is something I learned in grad school as well. The American Corn Law, right? Up to now, the agriculture is subsidized every year. This is how we're able to produce tons of potato in Idaho and ship it to Russia. This is how we're able to produce a lot of pork and ship it to China, right? In that sense, we get other trade back, but it's heavily subsidized. The other point that I want to make quickly, and I'll land, is that there's a policy Ghana has. It's called the One District, One Factory policy. There's a line item in their budget right now as we speak, right? Meaning, let's say we have 16 counties and we want, I think somebody said we have, let's say we designate each county to produce something different. We can fund that, meaning whoever wants to establish that can bring half of the money, the government put half of the money, and you establish that industry, that factory in that county, right? We can adopt that same strategy as well, where each county will be known for producing something different. Ghana has something like that. They call it One District, One Factory policy, where there's an agenda to create one district where every district, they want to have a factory in there that is producing something in the country that they have. So the ideas are there. It's right in the region. We can adopt that. We don't have to look afar to embark on those things. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Chairman Zaza, thank you very much for giving 2 hours of your time. Let me touch on the last piece that you were lecturing on. The state-owned enterprises. I don't want to ask you this question because some of us, we are fed up with it. Is it truly privatized? Is it owned by the state? Is it working? And then before you go to that, I'm looking at an article here, research here from Cornell University. referring to Liberia's war, they call it the war economy, that the entire 12 years of the Ellen government, they depended on the UN, the blue helmet economy. In so doing, they put nothing in place at all. So Liberia had nothing beyond the war economy, beyond the blue helmet money coming in. And when they left, the country was basically left dry. Can you tell those two things, the war economy and then the state-owned enterprise? I don't know whether the state owns them or they are privatized. I don't know what the difference here.
All right. I think the issue of Ellen government, I don't think anybody is unaware what Ellen did to Liberia. Practically, she created a situation for Liberia to be in debt forever, in my mind. To the extent when you mortgage most of the natural resources and you create situation where the major entities, LEC, National Port Authority, NASCOP, and LPRC are somehow privatized, and in fact they are accumulating more debt. I mean, how can you redeem yourself from that kind of a chain of debts? The government is indebted, the state-owned entities indebted, and the individual are indebted. It's difficult to release yourself from anything. So the Ellen government, you would think that the 4.5 billion Ellen worked to cancel that. The advocates to cancel debt to poor countries started long ago before even Ellen came to the picture. You had 19 countries, their debt were canceled, including Sierra Leone and Ghana. Okay, so, but you see what happened. By 2010, we had only 260 million debt that were owned by domestic companies. Before Ellen left, it was 876 million, but there were 260 million in a pipeline to be signed. So basically, you can think about 1 billion. Beyond that, when you have all of these entities that will be generating money and not giving you money because sweetheart deals was the order of the day. So you have an economy that actually is not an economy in the true sense. You can't pinpoint any particular entity to say this is what Ellen left to say will create jobs. I don't see it. They put up their platform, Boca put up a platform that they built 300 schools around the country. I'm trying to figure out, is there any high school in the Pinsville area that Ellen built? Is there any high school in Yukutown that she built? Or were there 300 schools built or in the interior or in the other 14 counties and none was built in Macerado County? She talked about, then those numbers are included in Borkai's platform. I talking about 2023 platform. They were basically saying what Ellen did. They're talking about making rice farm around the country. I don't see rice farm. So I don't see what Ellen left for Liberia. Even the issue of discipline, I would have thought that if anything, she was supposed to leave for people to be disciplined. Are we? Or at least to reduce corruption, because she felt corruption was enemy number one. But at the end of the day, she said the corruption was a vampire. So, her definition of corruption as being a vampire clearly defined what economic system she left for us. I don't think I need to talk more about it. Now, let me shift to the issue of the state-owned entities. Let's take NASCA, for example, the Social Security Welfare Corporation. Where do we have our money? You see, you collect money from employees and the employer to be reinvested to generate more money, so that when the people retire or when they are misfortune or accident, you can pay them based on the agreement. But where's the money today? Where are the banks? How come these state-owned entities are not publishing their financial report to know where they're investing? But beyond that, what are the kind of portfolio NASCOP is investing in to ensure that we are generating the money that is needed in order to pay dividends or to pay the benefits that these pensioners have invested in? For example, most of the portfolio or a lot of their investment is in real estate. But real estate, according to the pension regulations around the world, is not one of the portfolio you should be investing a lot of your money in. If anything, it should not be above 10%. But I think it's about close to 37%. And I give you an example. If you have been to Liberia, there's a building at the ELWA junction. They call it the building that LRA is using. A very beautiful building. NASCOP built that for investment purposes. But the government doesn't pay rent, so how can you call it investment? The government, I reviewed the annual report of LRA. They owe the government 2 years, they haven't paid. Even the money they deducted from employees to be submitted or remitted to NASCOP, they are owing, because if you look on the balance sheet and they say liabilities, and you go to the breakdown and you see NASCOP as one of the entities that they owe, it means they are deducting money from employees, they're not submitting it to NASCOP. And if you see rent for the billing, it means the investment that NASCOP should be talking about is not an investment. It's a money-losing entity. Two, NASCOP should not be managing real estate itself. Because real estate...
But Mr. Chairman, won't you advise NASCOP, for instance, maybe to get away from renting from government and build apartment complexes for people to rent, ordinary citizens? I mean, there is a massive shortage of housing in Liberia. We all know how congested Monrovia is. If NASCOP will redirect their effort towards that, I mean, we all know all these estates, Stephen Tower, and they've all been, people take them up before they even finish building them. Why don't they focus their attention in that direction?
But they got National Housing and Savings Bank. I mean, they got National Housing Authority that is doing that.
Right, but I'm saying, look, here, like you're saying, the pension funds here, the agencies that manage them, their job is to go out there and make the funds to multiply and grow. And this is an investment opportunity. National Housing is doing it, but obviously National Housing is not keeping up with demand. And I'm saying, what is wrong with NASCOP opening up another avenue to alleviate the housing problem in Liberia? They could go into apartment buildings, build cheap, affordable apartments for people to rent, and that way they make money on the returns.
Well, there are regulations for insurance and pension funds that prohibits those entities from investing a lot of your investment in real estate portfolio. There are regulations for that.
Right. And I agree with you, that regulation, but what are regulations if they are hurting the agency? They should go and and revise those regulations that will give them the authority to do that. Because look, I'm saying this because I know people put money into investment and they get nothing when they retire. Jenkins is a classic example. A former minister of justice died right under the very building he was minister of because he had no income coming to him after he retired. And that's because of the failing of our agencies such as NASCOP. You put your money in, but when you retire, you get nothing out because they don't have any money. I mean, now we're hearing people are going in there even before they are inaugurated and taking almost $1 million there to buy cars. Where is the guarantee that, when you retire as a government employee tomorrow, there'll be money there to take care of you?
Yeah, this is a great. I think we talked about this on another show. We were looking at NASCOP, right?
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm just putting this question. I don't mean for you. I'm not directing at you. I'm just putting it on the table for discussion.
But the chairman had written extensively, like he just said.
Yeah.
If you are NASCAR, like you got your 401k. My 401k, I never, when I look at the spreadsheet, I don't see real estate there. I see I
They,
see.
That's because Jerome, because there
nice.
are lots of other investment opportunities. Most of the 401ks are on the on the stock market. They're on Wall Street. So
so
they diversify the portfolio and they put several things in the basket. In the case of Monrovia, we may not have that kind of opportunity, but real estate really, I believe,
Okay, okay.
to
Oh,
be
Mr.
one.
Cece, touch on the plea real quick.
No, but sir, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying if you want to follow the rules in the industry, you got to guide yourself with that. And you could buy bonds from Algerians, from Botswana. Those are people who have surpluses, and therefore they will be able to redeem their bonds. But the government of Liberia cannot redeem its bond. NASCOP is buying bonds from Liberia government, 40 million, and now one day they receive interest income.
and if I may add to this, it's I agree with Zeze here. It's so I without even mentioning one of my client is one of the country up north. Their police force, we call it the Royal Police. I'm not going to mention it, right? Upworth of 100 million is invested in US, right? The same thing the state of New York, their retirement 150 million, right? Some of these universities and colleges, right, are some of my clients. So meaning they're not looking specifically at one asset class. They're looking
Mhm.
at diversified asset classes.
Mhm.
We continue to say that Liberia has a, I will call it, it's not strategic anymore. It's a unique relationship with the U.S. You have a social security system. You can set up a holding entity in the United States that all it does is manages your investment here. You pick the investors just like the Canada does, right? Their Royal Police invests here in the United States. There's a fund. People go out there to put out prospectus, say, we're doing this, we're investing in this. You just say, hey, if you're a NASCO who has a holding entity here, you say, we have 50 million for our organization. Invest this. The holding company here, all they're going to do is manages, receive quarterly reporting. And if you don't like it, you can go to another. We have resources. It's just the ideas are limited. I saw the NASCO holdings. They have real estate in other part of the cities, counties as well. They have guest houses, by the way, that they lease out. Um, but I agree with Zeze. All of it doesn't have to be in real estate because the moment you start having deterioration in the real estate, it puts you at a greater default. We don't have a great, how do you call it, way to assess to real estate to evaluate real estate in our country. The other thing is you buy 40 million of government bonds. What happens if the government start defaulting, right? It defaults to itself, right? So that's it's and as I said, we have the resources. We just don't have the people who are thinking outside of the box in terms of really being intentional how you can manage people money that to make sure if this individual works for 20, 25 years, 30 years, that if they come out, I want to make sure that they're going to have pension there that they're going to rely on daily for the rest of their life. So I think we have to think outside the box, put people in the right places to really leverage the resources that are out there.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. We have kept our visitor here. Hopefully we don't discourage you from coming back. We have to keep having this discussion. Those of you who are into the scripture, they say faith cometh by hearing and hearing. That means repeatedly we got to do this. And you are picking up more people, as you can see the comment section here. People agree with you that this model that we are using is not working. If it's working for the 3%ers in Liberia, like the man said, 95.7% of the people they're not making any money. So we're talking about 4.3% of the entire country get all the money. Because they say your closing argument, hopefully next time you can come back, but you got time to close it. What is it that you want to discuss? What is it that we didn't ask? What is it you want to leave with us?
No, I'm appealing to everybody, especially from J. Nangwe Victor, who happens, I remember, to be a leader of the United People's Party in the USA. Let us not wait for money to begin to advocate, because those who have money don't want you to succeed. So don't look up to them. They're not going to give you the money. Let's continue to talk. If we talk, people are going to listen. I mean, look in Liberia, most of the representatives don't make it a second time. It means people are paying attention to the views that you are expressing out there. So let's continue to talk more. Let us not look only to the political parties, the advocates. Let's continue to talk. Let's continue to educate the people. And I thank you very much, Jerome Gaiman, my president for Newark, New Jersey. Thank you. Let's continue to work hard and let's continue to advocate the right messages. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yanquoi Zaza. We want to say thank you, Mr. Namwe. Our partners here, the messages that we were talking about from the 70s to the 80s, it still resonates, Mr. Namwe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gaiman. Mr. Zay, before you leave, let me thank you also. I know over the past year or two, you guys have tried to come together, the progressive. I think you were at Deacon's Place the last time celebrating the Martyrs' Day.
Right.
That's how we refer to it. I would just encourage us to continue to engage because, as we all have realized, the divide in the progressive community is only apparent among us. The rest of the outside world doesn't know that LPV is different from UPV. They categorize all of us as one and the same.
Mhm.
So I'll just encourage us to continue to, to put aside those differences and come together and continue to work as a collective. I want to thank you today for this appearance and for this brilliant presentation. Be well.
Thank you. Mr. Taiwo, 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I was able to make this show today, because for a long time, since December, it was my first thing that I joined On Point. This was my position. Every point, Mrs. Zaza, that you have made, because I spent more than half of my life looking through so many different documents on this, and I've been ostracized in so many places. I have friends that avoided me. They call me conspiracy theorist, but each time, everything that I say come true. So I really want you. I will. If I have to go and buy Mr. Gaiman some cassava rice at least once a month, I want for you to make this show, because this is really serious. You see what we are discussing here? Look at the main area that we are living. The forest and the land. They've taken over all the infrastructures through the loan forgiveness. I studied that stuff in like 2000 and 2003 all the way to 2004. It's a scheme. What they do here, every country that got that loan forgiveness went back in the debt faster than before. The reason is because when they come in, they take all your money-making infrastructure and entities. Based on that is how the loan is forgiven. So then when the loan is forgiven, everywhere you are earning money to take care of yourself and even pay the loan is not in your hands anymore. So you now depend solely on borrowing, and that is what we see in Liberia. LDC is gone, the port is gone, this one is gone, everything is gone. So you don't have anything else, you just borrow. That's it. So it's a scheme. They did the same thing in Nigeria when they brought Okonjo Wale. Nigeria had like about almost $20 billion. When they saw that, they said Nigeria loan need to be forgiven now. And what was the condition on which Nigeria loan was going to be forgiven? They should forfeit that money. And once they did that under Obasanjo, they brought her specifically from the IMF and the World Bank. And she destroyed Nigeria, and she left, and Nigeria had never been the same. But we need to see these things they repeat. So our land, through the climate change and the global warming, they are coming for our land. They are training militias with arms in the name of protecting the wildlife and the forest. This is so aggressive front that they are coming with. They're going to de-land us. We must pay attention to this.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. Mr. Carter.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Zaza, thank you for being, for joining us today. I think, as I said earlier, and I will continue to echo this, you are one of the most consistent individuals in the opposition, especially when it comes to these economic issues that I think we should be paying attention to. instead of the political ones, right? So I urge you to continue doing what you're doing, whether even if you're the lone soldier and you're the only person doing that. What I would like to close on this, and for me, it could be biased. I would say it could be biased as well. This is the kind of conversation we need to be having. It drives everything else. Your economic position as a country drives the political narrative. It drives everything else that in the country. As economic goes, so does the narrative goes. And I think these conversations need to be had regularly. These things need to be brought to the attention of those in power and those aspiring to be in power. Because I believe if we don't do that, we'll continue to be in this perpetual state of being dependent upon the West. And hopefully, I hope not, we don't repeat what happened 14 or 20, 21 years ago. But I believe these conversations need to be had. And I urge you and I thank you for continuing to having them. Hopefully, sooner or later, the next batch of politicians or those aspiring to be in politics will take on some of these things. And hopefully, we're able to chart our own path and be the country that we need to be, which is the oldest democracy on the continent. We're supposed to be first in everything, what is on every economic measure. So hopefully there will be a leader who comes in and take on these things and make sure that I can put it on a trajectory to get to that point. So thank you. And it was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as usual, whether you're from the UPP, LPP, CDC, wherever you come from, we are all Liberian. What Honorable Zaza is talking about here, they say the liar man will say, my witness is behind the ocean. But he is saying, go on Broad Street, go on Tottenham Boulevard and see children out of school selling chocolate. Chasing 10, 15 kids with the same chocolate chasing one car. If that doesn't convince you, you can call him socialist, you can call him communist, you can call him Chinese, but it is the liar man says with it right there on Capitol Bypass. It's in your family, it's in your home. For those of us over here, remittance is killing us. Now they're going to start calling for wire fee again, school fees. Somebody's sick, bury this person. My uncle, I just had a baby and they wouldn't let me out of the hospital until I pay. All of those things are evidence that Mr. Zaza, Honorable Zaza is talking about. And when we talk about it, we want to have the pollinating effect. 10 people go and tell other 10 people and tell other 10 people. People shouldn't say, I put my hand up, this country will never change. I remember they used to say, leave the people think alone. They think now we are things. And they changed that. We are now at another level, and this level is what is going on. We will keep changing it till we get it right. Mr. Zaza, Honorable Zaza, thank you very much. And as always, we say we are all Liberian, no matter your success. So
we are Liberian. Thank you very much.